People deboarding there on the left side of your screen, deboarding rather, getting out of the car from the motorcade that just came over from Chandler, where he was speaking at the Ocotillo campus at the Intel plant. So a lot of good information, news, and money coming out of that conversation.
Yeah, the biggest takeaway, the biggest headline from that announcement at the Intel plant in Chandler, which happened at about 11:30 earlier this morning and wrapped up an hour later, was that he announced a major grant. We are talking about $8.5 billion for Intel, which has been massively expanding. This award will create 6,000 construction jobs and 3,000 manufacturing jobs. And the money, in case you're wondering, it all comes from the CHIPS and Science Act. This is an act that Biden signed back in 2022, geared towards promoting semiconductors, also known as chips. It's a very key component in most electronics. You can find these chips in our cell phones, in our appliances, in cars. It's pretty much everywhere. And this is so important because it's meant to revitalize American manufacturing, moving the jobs here, relocating it here, which really puts Arizona on the map for this global manufacturing process. So it's a huge feather in our cap, and it really puts us on the map.
And one of the things President Biden touched on during his speech over there in Chandler is to say that only 10% are currently manufactured here in the United States, and he's hoping to change that, doubling it to 20%, bringing those jobs, as you said, 10,000 specifically to Arizona and 30,000 overall as he continues to make stops in various states, Arizona being one of 4 that is going to see the benefits of that. And you know what? It dominoes into other jobs and growth in the Chandler community, specifically small jobs, small businesses, small business owners, really capitalizing on his efforts to bring the semiconductor plant here. So again, we're just waiting for Air Force One to take off from Sky Harbor. It was a quick visit, staying the night at the Princess there in North Scottsdale. I don't think he had time for a round of golf there at TPC, but perhaps next visit. We know he was here in the fall. Just last year. So we will see when he's planning to make another trip out here to State 48.
Yeah, let's talk about another big headline that happened yesterday when he arrived. He arrived roughly just after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then from there, he went to his South Phoenix restaurant. And this is very important as well, because the whole goal of this campaign visit was to rally the Latino voters, saying that they are the reason he defeated Donald Trump back in 2020 and that he needs their vote once again to help him do it again this November. Now, let's rewind back to 2020, where Biden won 63% of Hispanic voters. In general, though, Democrats are seeing less support from key voting blocs come election time. Case in point, during the 2022 midterms, Democratic candidates saw 57% of the votes. So this goes back to why Arizona is really so crucial to win for Biden once again. Arizona is actually one of 3 stops during this big tour of the swing states. We're talking Nevada. He was there just before he arrived to Arizona yesterday. After Arizona, he is in a couple of minutes, it looks like he is ready to head off to Texas for more campaign rallies happening in Dallas and in Houston.
Yeah, making 2 stops while in the Lone Star State, again, trying to continue pushing that message to voters. And when you go back to 2020 and you talk about that narrow margin, we're talking about just 0.3 of a point in 2020. So very important for him to try to grab hold of these blocks of voters that we continue to talk about. And it was interesting yesterday being out at some of the polling locations and talking with voters, because you hear a lot of the same, what their concerns are and the issues that they're worried about and the changes that they want to see with this next presidential cycle. So it will be interesting to see how things continue to shake out. We talked earlier in the 1 o'clock show how there's not too many people that are very happy with the options on the ballot, but these are our nominees for the foreseeable future here as we make our way to November. So we will continue to see what happens. And you talk about 100,000 votes for Nikki Haley here in Arizona. So which way are those going to swing come the fall?
Yeah, Bram Resnick, he was out there at both events happening last night at that South Phoenix restaurant, as well as earlier this afternoon over at Intel. He'll be joining us live coming up later on at 4 o'clock to really just give us a breakdown, his big takeaways just from being at both events, what he saw, what he gleaned from this campaign rally, as well as this huge announcement of $8.5 billion for Intel. And as you see right here, Air Force One, everybody on board. And it is going to taxi on the runway there at Phoenix Sky Harbor, ready to take off. As we mentioned earlier, ready to take off to Dallas, Fort Worth. There he's got 2 campaign rallies happening. He'll be at a campaign reception both at 6:05 p.m. tonight as well as 8 o'clock tonight. He was supposed to leave roughly at about 1:25 from Phoenix Sky Harbor, but running just a little bit behind. But as you can see, Air Force One about ready to take to the skies.
And WFAA there in Dallas is like, boy, Air Force One is going to land at DFW right in the heart of rush hour when that motorcade then interrupts traffic there. We saw that a little bit yesterday. A lot of people maybe under a rock for the moment, not realizing that the president was here visiting the Grand Canyon State as he makes his way out of state to continue the campaign trail. And that's exactly what he's going to be doing there in Texas, is trying to rally that Latino vote and see if he can't grasp that block a little more so as we inch closer and closer to Election Day in November.
Yeah, because we know definitely that the Latino vote is very crucial. Arizona being one of 3 states, again, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas, crucial to winning his seat in the White House coming up in November. And we should also mention that today and yesterday marks his 3rd visit here to our state as president. He came back in September 2023 for a private campaign fundraiser, also a tribute to his longtime friend, John McCain. He also came back in December 2022. If you'll remember, he went to North Phoenix, visited the TSMC facility. Again, that goes back to the big semiconductor manufacturing business happening right here in our own backyard. So crucial to really putting out these chips that really help the world in all of its products, all of the manufacturing, bringing jobs here to Arizona. And it's just a huge boost to our economy.
It certainly is, and it's all part of his investing in America efforts, keeping everything here and domestic, and trying to be self-contained as a country and rely more and more on the great American workers that we have and the people that are looking to continue their careers in these said industries and just really work toward the American dream, which is what most people who I spoke to yesterday at the polling locations, they want. They want to make sure that they can execute that, and more so than anything, they're worried about their kids being able to achieve that. So it's great to see growth, East Valley, West Valley. We want to see it all across our state, certainly, as the president was here to try to ramp that up with major funding for that plant. And again, we're talking about 10,000 specific jobs. And of course, this is stretches across 4 states. So it's Arizona here, Ohio, New Mexico, and Oregon, and 30,000 jobs to come with this whole thing. And we saw a lot of the workers there on site in Chandler at the Ocotillo campus just getting really excited, not only to see the president in person, but to hear what he had to say during that speech.
Yep, this is a slow ramp up to getting up in the skies right here. We should mention, too, that, again, the president, he was supposed to leave roughly at about 1:25 and just running just a little bit.
Yeah, fashionably late. I think it's probably okay.
Yeah, but it should be interesting because as we sit here, towards the end of March, we've got 8 more months to go come November, come the election. It should be interesting to see if he comes back to Arizona to try again, once again, to rally the voters here, especially the Latino voters.
Certainly. And, a couple, again, that I spoke with yesterday, and it's a small pool of people that I had a chance to talk to, but those are their concerns: the border crisis, the immigration, the inflation, and a lot of people admitting inflation is affecting their neighbors, not so much them. I talked to a dental hygienist. She said it's not affecting me personally, but it's affecting my patients, and that domino effect really impacts the entire community, the valley, the state, and so on. And we don't want to see those negative impacts. So these voters that did turn out yesterday and showed up in person, they want to see change. They weren't just answering our questions yesterday. They were making statements to us in hopes that these politicians hear them. And I think, Joe Biden had a chance to talk to plenty of people there on the ground, and I'm sure they were good conversations that, you know, keep an open mind for what we need in this country.
Yeah, definitely talking to a key demo last night at that South Phoenix restaurant. It was a Mexican restaurant. And, you know, they talked about a number of things. Trump's derogatory rhetoric towards Latinos, how Hispanic unemployment is at its lowest it's been in a long time because of President Biden's policies. That's what he was touting. Biden also highlighted his administration initiatives to help small businesses. He also talked about reducing gun violence. He criticized Trump for wanting more tax cuts for rich people. And we should also say, too, that his visit comes on the same day of his launch. This is a big campaign ad for Latinos called Biden-Harris, and that will run in English, Spanish, and Spanglish. And as you can see, Air Force One just about ready to take off into the skies as it gains some ground, gains some speed here, wrapping up President Biden's two-day visit right here to Arizona.
Big shout out to photojournalist Richard Prang, who is getting those images for us. We really appreciate it. And of course, hopefully he's on the right side of that airplane, getting a good look at Camelback. It's beautiful today. So he picked the right day to have a speech outside. Thankfully, the weather cooperated for President Biden and his administration, who was here. We know that Greg Stanton welcomed him yesterday, as well as Stephen Lewis. So it was great to have our dignitaries out there welcoming him on the tarmac as he takes off for Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yes, and he is expected to arrive roughly about 5:25. Again, two campaign receptions tonight, both in Dallas and Houston at 6:05 and at 8 o'clock tonight. All right, safe travels, obviously, to Texas. And that's going to do it for us. We want to remind you we will have more coverage of President Biden's visit coming up later on in just roughly about 2 more hours on 12 News at 4. Bram Resnick is going to be coming back from Chandler, from that Intel plant, which he covered there, and he'll break down obviously what happened earlier this afternoon at Intel, as well as what happened last night at that South Phoenix restaurant. But for now, we're going to send it back to programming, and we appreciate you watching 12 News.